Welcome back to our show, your show, Let's Talk Stocks. Of course, we're going to continue our discussion with Mr. Chukwuemeka Cameron of Design Privacy, talking to you about the new Data Protection Act and all the things that you and your company, your organization need to know to be compliant with the Act. Take a look. So this is even more than just saying, here is my list of people that I process data on, register my company name XYZ. I have to now be meticulous in going through my systems and looking at how and why I am collecting.
So that's the first step. That's not compliance. That's the first step of compliance. I hope I didn't give that impression.
No.
That's the first step of compliance.
Yes.
There are at least 8 data processing standards and an entire framework to enable data subject right that you have to implement. So registering is just the first step.
Yes.
It's just the first step. You have to put in place mechanisms to allow me to exercise my right. So it's not just a right on paper. If it is, the information commissioner comes in and say, okay, how are you going to respond to, what do you do in response to a personal data breach? What do? You have to be able to demonstrate that you have a system in place. Show me how you, if a data subject were to tell you to stop processing personal data, show me how that would work. Because that's another right I enjoy. In certain circumstances, I can tell you, I don't want you to process my personal data. Stop processing my personal data. We now own our personal data. And the Data Protection Act has created a framework that allows us to enforce those rights. And the objective of it is, how do we minimize any danger that may fall upon us when there is a breach? Because data, transferring data, sharing personal data, processing personal data is at the heart of all business transactions. And associated with that is a high probability that there will be a breach. But once there is a breach, how do we minimize the impact on the citizen?
How do we remedy that breach?
Not remedy the breach. How do you minimize the impact on me? Once my information goes on the dark web, what measures, how do we ensure that my bank account isn't emptied? How do you ensure that when it is found out that Mr. X has AIDS, how do you put mechanisms in place to ensure that he's not discriminated against?
Here's the elephant in the room, Chuck. So a person's, as it stands now, a person's bank account is emptied. You go to your bank and it's as if the bank would want to put the responsibility on you to prove that you didn't go and empty it. Under the Data Protection Act, whose responsibility is it?
So they will be held. So let's look at it from a different angle. So under the Data Protection Act, there is no clear liability on the bank as a result of that breach. However, there is a clear responsibility and liability if it is the information could ask the question, what were the access controls you had in place to manage how persons accessed that information? If you fail to demonstrate that you had the requisite access controls in place, you are liable for that. So she can't tell you to pay back the people their money, or it's your fault why there was a breach. She's concerned she wants to ensure that you have developed a framework that can, first you have to follow the data processing standard.
Yeah.
It tells you that you must put adequate security measures in place to protect persons' personal data. Failure to put those adequate measures in place is an offense.
Given where we are in our internet security capabilities, hackers in the first world are far advanced.
In Jamaica too, in developing countries, the information is equal opportunity. You have hackers on demand. You can outsource it now. Equal opportunity for everybody.
How well developed is our security mechanism generally?
So, again, let's look at the framework that the government is trying to put in place. So, first thing, it is recognized, and I focus on the individual and how it impacts us. The first thing is that we have a constitution that has declared that we own our personal data. So from the highest level, there is a recognition that this is important and we have ownership over it. When you look under the Constitution, we have several pieces of legislation. We have the Cyber Crimes Act that criminalizes hacking and activities of that nature. We have a Data Protection Act. We have an Electronic Transaction Act. So we have a frame, and we even recently just came out of amending our Cyber Crimes Act. So we are trying to build out a framework that allows for a robust information security response. Then we have built out institutions. So we have JCERT operating out of the Office of the Prime Minister, who is there to respond and advise to these sort of events. And then you have an Information Commissioner, and then you're going to have an ICT authority. So there's an active attempt to build out a framework. How robust is it at the end of the day? It does boil down to the individual. The fact of the matter is that all suppliers in the business, in the information security business, are for the most part cloud-based. So everybody has access to the latest technology. We all have access to the latest information. It is for us to use it on a local level. But are we trying to build out that national framework that prioritizes our information security? I would say we are going in the right direction.
Okay. How much protection? So for instance, the government now, well, generally people have access to tonloads of data. They're now processing your data, sensitive data. You would have protection in terms of how it can be shared, or to whom it can be shared. Can your information be sold? How much protection we get in terms of those things?
A lot. So that's the first thing you even have to declare. Before you can get protection, there must be transparency. We must know that it's happening. So part of what you must register or declare to the Information Commissioner on registering is, after you tell her what your inventory of personal data, you're also required to declare to her, who do you share it with? So right away there's transparency. Yes. The legislation has gone one step further. If it is you are going to share information with somebody to process it in your behalf, you must have an agreement in writing that passes on the requirement to implement data processing standards.
And this agreement is between
the data controller, that is your media organization, and then if you have a media company or a sales company to drive ads, you must have, they're your data processor, and you must have an agreement with them, because they are collecting names and numbers for you to place ads on your organization. So they're your data processor. So, and that's one that we didn't discuss at the beginning. Everywhere, the processing personal data.
Yes.
So there is no risk to privacy
Mm-hmm.
if data is stagnant, if it's not moving. It only becomes value when information is shared between parties or entities.
What's the next steps? The act is now live since December 1. The commissioner's office of the commissioner has a few challenges in some of the processes along the way. The minister has said 6 months. 1 month has already gone. Well,
2.
2 months has already gone. January 31st. What is going to happen going forward? Or what needs to happen going forward?
So organizations that process large amount of personal data or personal sensitive data, and all government agencies by now should have appointed a data protection officer. The reality is that we do not have sufficient data protection officers to serve each entity, and it is not sufficient to appoint someone a data protection officer to comply with the act, because that data protection officer, your freedom and the viability of your organization turns on an effective DPO. So it's not somebody say, we need a DPO, okay, Chantal, you're the DPO. It doesn't work like that. So you do have to understand what your strategy would be. Are you going to be outsourcing it to experienced data protection officers, such as Design Privacy or other such players in the market, while training up an internal resource? Or even find an internal resource and training up that person. But to navigate the setup, to navigate this uncertain space, you do need trained persons with experience. So that is where your focus should be, because that's one of those mandatory things. That's black or white. Do you have a DPO or do you not have a DPO? And if you don't have a DPO, what steps are you taking to put one in place? And because you are not, you had 2 years from December 21 to roll out everything. Reality is, very few people have rolled out anything. So in the real world, you are not expected to do everything all at once. So first steps where you should be now, your board should be fully aware of its responsibilities. Budget should have been allocated to identify a DPO either internally or externally, and that has been executed. By now, the DPO should be overseeing and monitoring the framework that you'd have used the 2 years to build out in that world.
All right. And from the legislator's perspective, minister likely to make any pronouncements and give any more clarity, whether himself or the data commissioner, on this 6-month period?
You have touched a sensitive point for me when you ask if the minister is going to make any more pronouncements. So the Office of the Information Commissioner is a commissioner of Parliament, an independent entity. So there's a question for me whether or not any minister is supposed to be making any pronouncement on behalf of this independent commissioner of Parliament.
Starting off on the wrong foot.
The question I would ask is, did we see any minister making pronouncements on behalf of Indicom?
No.
Did we see any minister making pronouncements on behalf of the
Bank of Jamaica?
No, but they're not an independent commission. This entity is bigger than a BOJ in terms of their autonomy. They are only answerable to Parliament. When you look at the Integrity Commission, do you see any minister speaking on behalf of the Integrity Commission? They enjoy this autonomy because they are to hold even the minister accountable to them, and their ministry accountable to them.
Powerful people.
So it is.
Chuck, it's very interesting. There are some gray areas that we need to have sorted out. We will invite the
Yes,
Information
definitely.
Commissioner to bring some clarity
Definitely.
to these issues.
And
Thank you very
I
much.
will watch that show.
Chuck, you put a lot of information on the table. You seem very knowledgeable on the issue surrounding data privacy and the Act and all that is. Many of our businesses aren't as knowledgeable. How can you and Design Privacy help some of these come up the curve?
So first of all, if you notice, it's Design Privacy and not Chuck Cameron. So I've often been trying to sensitize the market, so
Yes.
persons are familiar with my face and my name. But over the years, we have built out a strong team of 8 persons, and on demand over 15 persons. And the Design Privacy team of 8 persons, all we do every day is data protection. So there's no other firm in the Caribbean that only does data protection every day, all day. So we come into you can. What we do is help roll out your compliance program and help build trust with your customer, because ultimately that's what you need to achieve. Compliance is one, but if you don't have any customer, you don't have to worry about compliance.
There you go.
So we come into your organization and not only give you a list of to-dos. After we conduct an overall assessment, we help implement the actual data processing, the actual data protection standards that are required, and serve as your DPO as well.
Yes.
We advise our clients that to transition into the full operation, you need an experienced DPO. While you have that outsourced DPO, we will train up someone to be your DPO, because while we would love to be your DPO for life, because financially that makes sense,
Makes sense.
that may not be sustainable on part of the company. So we do understand and appreciate that. So I'd help you identify what it is to be an effective DPO, and then we help you select that person and help train up that person so there can be a smooth transition. So we do offer the full raft of services as it relates to implementing and maintaining your data protection program.
Excellent. Let's process a little bit more data here then. Where can these people find you? And I want you to make sure you're looking in the camera. How they find you, how they contact you, because people will need those services.
So because it's an information-based exercise, go to our LinkedIn page at Design Privacy. That is where you can find all our contact details. You can start to educate yourself and learn about what it is needs to happen. We also have an active Twitter handle at Design Privacy, and then you could contact us at our email address. That's ccameron at designprivacy, DESIGNPRIVACY.io. And you can contact us anytime. And our WhatsApp number is 876-339-3673. And we are always available to serve. If you are individual hairdresser or a multinational, we are here to help you solve your data protection compliance needs.
Absolutely great. Thank you very much, Chuck, for coming in. Your help is certainly needed to bring a lot more clarity and to help some of the companies come up the curve.
Always our pleasure.
I'm sure they will be in touch with you. As we always say here on Let's Talk Stocks, we give you information to make better financial decisions. Come back with us tomorrow morning at 9. We'll have another informative program lined up for you.